Welcome to another episode of Middle Ground with J.L.E. L.L.C, where we treat you like family. That's the theme song, Detroit Love, off my first album, The J.L.E. Experience. I own the music. Copyright. Don't mute nothing. Facebook. Always got to say that nowadays. We got another great guest for you today. We have the president, owner of the Plant Whisperers, Inc., ambassador at large, Dr. Angela J., Dr. Coach A.J. Nealy, Ph.D. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. It's such a pleasure, such an honor. Thank you for inviting me. I'm humbled.
I appreciate you. First question, what led you to this path?
What led me to the path of being a plant whisperer?
Yes.
I taught chemistry, and I probably didn't mention this. I taught chemistry, microbiology, biology, the sciences for 25 plus years, and then I retired. And before I retired, I knew that I wanted to start a company. And so I had the opportunity to teach botany and create the botany course at what's called here in Indianapolis, Ben Davis High School. I also had the greenhouse. So I managed the greenhouse and talked about botany course. I thought, and I had been doing it prior to that, as you know, in my family home, taking care of the ivy, cutting the grass, all those kind of things, trimming the hedges, and learning plants from my mother, who just loved roses and all the exotic kinds of plants. Anyway, so as time went on, I retired and I went to my optometrist office in 2010. And she had this plant left over, this one plant in this one container left over from the previous optometrist, who I also was a patient for. So I came to this optometrist, and she's here in Indianapolis. She's an HBCU grad. That's why I have on my Fisk University shirt. She's HBCU grad. So I have to plug that. The University, because our gymnastics team is performing for the first time today, and they've made her story about being the first gymnastics team, HBCU gymnastics team, to perform the NCAA tournament. But anyway, let me come back. So her name is Dr. Kimberly Darling Fornes. We'll forever be grateful to her. And I said to her assistant, I noticed this plant was sitting there and was looking like, oh my God, it was hanging on. It was hanging on for dear life. Even the men, patients, were saying to her, doesn't somebody want to water that plant? And I said to her sister, I said, look, here's what I'll do. If you pay me $25 a week, I'll come in and take care of that plant. So that's how it started. That was in 2010. And then in 2012, so I started taking care of her plants there in the office. And that plant that was one grew to be 3 massive plants that eventually grew to be 5 massive plants in her office. So we bought beautiful containers, and I had them looking so amazing. People thought that they were fake. And so she said, so about a year and a half why. Right. And she said, can you come to my house? I've got this ivy and nobody's been able to grow anything in my house for the last 10 years. I said, okay, sure. So I go to her home, this massive home, 6,000 square foot. I'm like going, oh my God, I'm coming to the Princess Palace, right? So she shows me this wedding ivy, and it's hanging on for dear life. So she has the person who cleans the floors and cleans the home to water it. Well, that's not her thing. That's not her gift. So I said, well, let me see what I can do. So I started working with the ivy. We got it turned around, and it went from looking like a few pieces to a whole long tray. Wow. And the wedding ivy means that it looks like a wedding bouquet. So it's a very small vein, So it looked magnificent. So that was one. And then she said, well, oh my God, she loves palms. So we bought these. Understand her ceiling is 25 foot high in her home. So she can do anything she wants. She can have anything she wanted. So she wanted palm trees. So we bought these containers, cement containers that were probably 4 foot across and in diameter, maybe 10 foot round. Wow. And the palm tree was, 10 foot high, excuse me. So we put in 3 palm trees in one area, right? Then we put in another palm tree that was even bigger than that in another part as you came in the front door. Then we added, I had a bonsai tree that started out this tiny, and it grew to be 5 foot tall. And I took that over and put that in her home. There were some other items that she accrued. And so by the time we finished, she had 19 plants that had grown in her home that had never grown anything. Absolutely amazing. That's the inside. And then on the outside, I started to take care of the front perimeter of the home. and there was a theme, and turned that around. And then on the back patio, she likes to socialize. So I turned the back patio around, and then the outside of the home, all around the perimeter of the home, there were trees and things that needed attention. I said, we need to trim this, trim that, and I trimmed hedges and that kind of thing. And the whole place was amazing. So people saw me out, and they were like, can you come do this to my home? I was like, sure. So I ended up, accruing like another 5, 6 clients in that community. It was absolutely amazing. So that's really how it started. Start with $25, and can I take care of this one plant? So she took me to a business seminar by 2012, and at what's called PNC. It's a bank here, and I think it's national. PNC's national head office is in Pittsburgh, right? And so I started and opened up, a business bank account, and registered with the state. So when they start talking about license and all that, I am. So I'm officially licensed with the state of Indiana. I'm an official company, and she's on the board of directors. And so 2 or 3 other folk are on the board of directors of my corporation. And that's where we are now, 11 years later. And so as people have seen the work that I do, I haven't ever had to advertise. They just see the work. Can you do that? Or they're referred. They get on the phone. Hey, oh my God, can you, and then I teach them how to take care of, in that case, that was not her thing. So I got paid to take care of it every week.
Okay.
With other clients, I taught them, built it, and then I would come, once a month. Or I come annually. I have that. So it's all different clients for all different needs. So that's how I got started in a long way.
Okay. Now, and what's all the services that your company provides?
So we do landscaping, we do advisement, we do training, we show you how to build soil, rebuild soil. When we say irrigation on a small level, we look at water flow from the home. So we're not putting in a whole irrigation underground watering system. I don't have the capability to do that. I'm a one woman show. So I do, right. So I do trim trees, and I do, I trim hedges and those kind of things, put down landscape netting, plant anything that you want. So for the I guess average resident, that's what their needs are. I've had a commercial client before, and tremendous amount of work, tremendous amount of time. Okay, but it's still the basic things: planting flowers, trimming the hedges, just making sure the outside veneer looks presentable to the customers that are coming and the patients that are coming. So just small basic things. But because I know how to do it and know when and what, and based on the season, and which way the sun comes into the property, I'm able to advise the client.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they can reach you on your Instagram,
Yes.
Facebook.
Instagram, Facebook. Absolutely. I'm very findable. And I do travel. I mean, I will travel outside of the city of Indianapolis. I have in the last 11 years. So I'm very findable, very flexible. I also can do things like this, a Zoom call, and advise you on your indoor plants, and get you going. But if that's not enough, as the season gets better, as in March, April, May, June gets better, you want me to come to your home, great, or your business, I'm open to that. I'm pretty flexible about that.
Okay. Now, I noticed, what is Ambassador at Large?
Ambassador Large is a year or more than a year ago. I earned an honorary doctorate from Trinity International University of Ambassadors, and it's now called Trinity Business School. But inside of that, because it's Trinity International, you became an ambassador at large. And so we're actually in the process. I'm glad you asked. We're in the process of going through and applying for an actual ambassadorship to the United Nations. So I'm applying actually this weekend. Right. So I'm looking at the human rights side of it, or the plant rights side of it. Yep.
Right, they both kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Okay. Now, you went to HBCU at Fisk.
Yes, I did.
How did that experience prepare you for this journey?
Absolutely. Fisk, my undergraduate degree was chemistry and chemical engineering. So I studied chemistry during the day at Fisk, and in the afternoon I drove to Vanderbilt and studied engineering, chemical engineering. So that allowed me to understand when I talk about the water flow and the elements in terms of the substance. Like, for example, this doesn't smell very good, but this substance here, you can't really see it. Let me see. Yep. There is a mixture of fertilizer, but it's also called plant tone. And so I use that, for example, that's the chemistry. So I understand the chemistry of it. It's a solute. So it has to dissolve in a solvent, which is water, in order for it to function in the soil and to provide the nutrients to the plants. Okay. But the fertilizer provides the macro and micronutrients to the soil. So understanding chemistry and understanding how all that works allows me to make sure that if I'm bringing something back to life, which I'm asked to do in a tremendous amount of time,
Okay.
um, that training from the chemistry, and then if I'm building something, like I had to build a whole entire garden on a 45-degree slant this past summer, that went into a lake, and I had to understand what can I do to encapsulate from an engineering point of view. What do I have to do based on
Okay.
angles to be able to stand up long enough to be able to build and to plant and to encapsulate that? What mass of stone would I have to put where in order to keep the soil encapsulated in the area so that I don't have what's called runoff, meaning the soil doesn't run off and the nutrients don't run off. And that's what had happened with this. It was originally with this particular project. I had weeds that were taller than me, 8, 9, 10 feet tall, that had been there for 15 years, and the root structure was this deep.
Ooh.
So from an engineering point of view, I had to think through, what am I going to do to mitigate that, and how am I going to be able to work on an angle and deal with the wind, the rain, in the time frame I was working. So I knew that I had to get it done by October, because after October, the wind from the lake wasn't going to be my friend. So the background in terms of that, my master's is from Indiana University, and I was a Lilly fellow. So it meant that Lilly paid that whole fee for me to get my master's, but I had to agree to get it in
Awesome.
1 year. But a master's takes 3. So I had to do it in 1, and I really did it in 14 months. And so I'm a Master of Science, Science Education. And then some 40 odd years after I left Fisk University, which was in my plan to get an honorary doctorate or an earned doctorate, but I ran out of money to get my doctorate. So the honorary doctorate came along, but it had been a life of service that provided
Okay.
that opportunity. It wasn't just like I just woke up, I was cute, and they gave it to me. That's not how that works. But I have to say that, because sometimes people go, "Oh, well, no, I had to provide service in various, genres of life, as an educator, as an
Oh
entrepreneur,
yeah.
as an athlete, as an auntie, as a daughter, all those things counted towards that final story to say, okay, she's earned it. So that's how that's how my training has allowed me to be successful. And then God gave me so many gifts and so many talents, and I just never turned them away. There were opportunities I took advantage of. God doesn't give you more unless you do well with the small He gives you. So I just always did
That's
well with
true.
the small He gave me, and it kept multiplying. So.
Now, what's been the worst job you had to tackle and make you look awesome?
Oh wow! Oh my God! I've had so many of them. Well, there was one a couple of doors down from where I live. Those weeds were the nettles, they had all the little pointy things on them, and
Ooh.
those were taller than me as well. And the whole area, which was, I would tell you, 15 feet long and about 5 feet wide, was all those weeds. And they weren't like the weeds that I talked about on the angle that were going into the lake. Those I could pull up and not tear up my hands. These I had to wear leather gloves because they had been growing so long that they had these points on them, kind of like rose bushes. Like if you can envision a bed of rose bushes, and then you're trying to grab the rose, those needles will tear your hands up, and you're just
Oh
itching.
yeah.
It's painful. Yeah, it's painful. So that probably would have been the worst one. But in the process of doing that, I was able to turn it around and unearth so many beautiful pieces that were hiding underneath these weeds. And my client was like, "Oh my God, I don't know what we're gonna do." He was happy to pay me every week to take care of it and turn it around. He was like, "Oh my God," he was always thanking me how beautiful it looked. So I ended up building a hostas garden, which is still in place. I ended up putting a little pathway in away from the door from the condo. There was a little pathway that took you through the garden, and it had a little red fire bushes that are pointy. And then I had other hostas that I added in. Then I added in not ivy, but what do you call it? I'll think of it in a minute. I'll think of it in it. Anyway, added in some other perennials, added in some irises. And from there, season after season, they got bigger, fuller, bigger, fuller. So now it's an amazing looking structure. And then I have three bushes that look like tabletops. I keep that trimmed. And then I put in a rock garden. So I built a rock garden, and then I built a rock veneer around that. So it really maintained itself. All I had to do was after it took about a year to redo all of that. And then from there, I just kept adding to it, and I kept it fertilized, and it just looks amazing all the time now. But that first year was rough, very, very rough.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for someone that's a beginner that's going to do something with their yard, what's like a basic tip you could give them before they start?
A garden.
Just their yard in general. What's a basic tip on how they should approach?
What are you personally willing to do? That's the first question you ask. What are you personally willing to do?
Okay.
How much funds are you willing? Number two, and I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you three. Second is, what funds are you willing to put aside to maintain that area? And then
Mhm.
three, how long do you intend for this to go? So one, what are you willing to do? Two, how much funds are you willing to set aside? Three, how long are you willing to make it go and make it look as it does? So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's reasonable.
Yeah. Because again, it tells your story of you. It tells you who you are. And when you don't take care of something and let it go, it really looks like not okay. So that's why I say, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to maintain it? Because otherwise, when it's a mess, it's just a not an attractive mess. It's not a mess you can live with. It's like, oh, you got to do something. So plus it takes, as I talked about before, I'm turning my phone down. I heard a beep. I didn't want to interrupt us. As I talked about before, the value of your home can look tremendously higher, up to 100,000, if the outside is in tremendous, tremendous care, tremendous shape. Like I have a tree in front of my condo, huge tree, but I take care of that tree because when that wind comes and that rain comes and that snow, I want it to take care of me. So I take care of it all the time. So I've built a dress around it with stone.
Okay.
And I've built enough up soil depth that I can fertilize, so its root structure is covered and it gets fertilized. And when I see things that might be offending the tree, I take them off, and bugs or whatever that might be, I spray and I do all that and take care of the tree. And then the tree I've been here going on 24 years in the summer, and the tree has gotten wider and bigger, so it provides more shade. Well, that's great in the summertime because now that cuts down on my cooling bill.
Yeah,
So,
true.
and then there are some leaves, even though we had some 40 and 50-mile-an-hour winds, there's still some leaves hanging on that tree, which tells me the tree is excessively healthy, which is wonderful. So that means the grass will be healthy as well because the root structure of the tree is taken care of, and therefore it will hold in moisture and hold the root structure of the grass intact. So
Now, if a person put that work in, they still could get up to over 20 grand in value if, say, their neighbors don't do the same.
Right. So my condo, when you drive by, everybody knows my condo is the best one, looking the best. Yeah, because it stands out. It really stands out, and so the value of my condo has doubled since I moved in. Like I said, 24 years ago, and that it wouldn't have never have doubled if I hadn't done the outside, and I continued to maintain it all the time. I'm always adding something, or last summer I restained. I have some wood veneers around each parts of the yard, different plants, different the irises. I have a tremendous amount of irises, so I put a wood veneer around, wood fence around them, but I restained all of those. And this summer coming up, I'll polyurethane all those just to ensure that they look vibrant and healthy. Yeah. So it becomes maintenance, like I was talking about, it becomes maintenance after a while. You do the initial work, the most expensive the first year, but after that, you teach the client, they maintain, and that's where the funds come in. I'm willing to spend, or I don't say spend, invest X amount to keep it going, year after year. And it becomes small compared to having to rebuild it every year, which I tell my client, we don't want to rebuild every year. We want to maintain what we built. We want to keep the design. We want to make the design a little bit better. We want to add to it. We want to take away, that kind of thing. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. What has your experience been advising former NASA astronaut Dr. Macy Jemison,
Oh
MD,
wow,
with
that's
curriculum
that's
for the
good.
Earth Research International Science Camp?
The Earth We Share. The Earth We Share started in 1994, and I was one of 3 educators selected at Choate Rosemary, which is a private Ivy League high school in Wallingford, Connecticut. And so if you know the Kennedys went there, Glenn Chase, Glenn, I don't mean Glenn Chase, Glenn Close went there. And so the school has 100, let me get this right, 400 acres, 100 buildings. The
Wow.
science building, yeah, yeah. To go there as a boarding high school, it used to be 35,000 a year.
Mm.
That's what it used to be. I don't know what it is now. It's probably 50,000 now, but that's just high school. That's just boarding high school. And so Dr. Macy Jemison, when she came back from space, she got connected with that school. And so she chose there's three educators. She chose one from Kansas, one from DC, and myself to be the first educators in International Science Camp. So from there, after that first year and going through that whole process and being a science teacher, which she absolutely loved, and being a chemistry teacher and being an athlete, she absolutely loved. Um, after that experience, she called me back, and instead of being an educator, I became the advisor to her because I had worked on curriculum, all that time, chemistry and general science, environmental science, and space science, because I taught all of that. And she had other individuals who wrote her initial curriculum, but I continued to advise her and add to it and maintain it from 1994 off and on, 1994 to now. It just all depends on when she's doing something. When she's not doing something, she calls. So it's been an amazing ride because it's opened up not just doors and windows, but garage doors and entire buildings, because the opportunity to teach at Choate Rosemary. And then I got an opportunity to go teach at Colorado School of Mines in Golden, Colorado, outside of Denver. I got an opportunity to go teach at Cornell University. At Ithaca, New York, got an opportunity to be a part of what's called, and all these things you can Google. The Women of Color in Flight was an amazing, life-changing event. It happened in 2006, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. And all of us were included. And that's where she did it. All of this is based on science and STEM and STEAM. All of this, we were doing this long before STEM and STEAM is popular now. 1994, long before. So let me go back a little bit to Choate Rosemary. Their science building was $14 million. And the room, $14 million, just their science building at a high school. So they had at that time, they had all the latest computer equipment you could find. Absolutely amazing. Okay. So then you fast forward, through Choate, well, from Choate, you go to Colorado School of Mines and what they had to offer and offer us. You go to Ithaca, New York, and Cornell University, what they had to offer us. And then now you come to 2006, and you look at the Women of Color in Flight. So all these different people, these were women, not all African American women of color from around the world, so Indian, Latino, Asian, all those women, those famous women that you see that were of color or even European in the NASA, her story, they were all there in one room.
Wow.
If you can imagine it. So the four women, and there's really five, there's six now, African American women who have been astronauts who've flown in space or flown suborbital. That means you don't leave the seven layers, but you're flying somewhere around. Anyway, in that famous picture that you see floating around the internet, I was standing next to the photographer while he took that picture of Dr. Mason. Yes, Colonel.
That's awesome.
Say it again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, you're watching history. You're watching her story, his story, the photographer, and her story. These women standing. So Dr. Macy Jemison, Carol, born in Alabama originally. Anyway, mother was a teacher, and then you're seeing she retired as a Colonel Yvonne D. Cagle, Dr. Cagle, medical doctor as well, just like Dr. Jemison. Dr. Cagle didn't get the opportunity to go to space, but she did kind of in a funny sort of way. There was an opportunity in 2011 to do, when the shuttle program was closing, there was an opportunity to take a picture of you and put it on a shuttle and go in space. So she and I had a picture that we had taken together, and I'll explain what we did with that. And it flew on the shuttle. So she did, and I got to actually go. Yeah, we got to go in space in an unusual sort of way, because she wasn't going to get the opportunity to do that. But she was an astronaut with a blue suit, and I'll talk about that travel in a minute. And then the orange suit is, what you wear out. But at that event, all those women were there. So Mechi Grego, the highest ranking general of the Indian Army, literally about 5 foot. She was there. Just all these women who flew commercial, who were co-pilots, who were pilots, who
Wow.
were combat pilots. I'm think of her name in a minute. I'll think of it. Hold on. I'll make it even better.
Okay.
Dr. Venice G. Armour. She and I got together recently. She's Dr. Venice G. Armour. She back then she was called Captain V. She's not that anymore, but she's retired from the Marines. So her father was a Marine and her grandfather was a Marine. But in any case, she's the first African American woman to fly combat Cobra, I think it is, helicopters.
Wow.
Right. She did 2 tours, and there's a couple of pictures where they're showing her, shooting down. Yeah, just absolutely phenomenal. But she was there. Just Nichelle Nichols, the great Nichelle Nichols was there. Nikki Giovanni, the great Nikki Giovanni. Nikki Giovanni did a poem for Dr. Macy Jemison when she went up in space. And so there's a picture of them all on stage, and I know that's floating around the internet as well. There's a picture of Nikki Giovanni, Nichelle Nichols, all of these astronauts, all on stage. But let me go back to the iconic photo that I was talking about. So we have Dr. Macy Jemison, Dr. Yvonne D. Cagle, Joni Higginbotham, who flew that next year and she got out. And then we have Stephanie D. Wilson, who by the way, is an engineer, and she still is there at NASA. And so she and Winston M. Scott, who was also an astronaut, whose daughter was in the program in 1994, would go out and this is what their day job is. They would, before she did that, she was literally, she and Joni Higginbotham launched rockets. They were rocket scientists. They're engineers with rocket science. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. So Winston Scott and Stephanie D. Wilson would go outside of the International Space Station and adjust the mirrors or adjust the cameras.
Wow.
So we could continue to see the International Space Station. And by the way, the astronaut Guyan Bluford, and I got an opportunity to introduce her back in 1998 here at a lecture series we created, which is a whole nother show, a whole nother story on another show. But he's the reason why, and Dr. Macy Jemison's research with frog embryos that sit on her desk in her office in Houston, all that research created the International Space Station. So it was her and Guyan Bluford who created the opportunity for that. Yeah. And I don't know if people know those background pieces. Dr. Jeanette Epps, and I've only connected to her on Twitter. I've not actually met her, but she follows me. I'll follow her. But she was supposed to be the first African-American woman to go to the International Space Station. But there were some political things when Trump was in, and she wasn't able to go. So the 4 women, Dr. Stephanie D. Wilson, or I call her doctor. I'm sure she has a few honorary doctorates. Joni Higginbotham, I'm sure she does too. Dr. Cagle, Dr. Jemison, and then there's Dr. Proctor, who flew on a commercial kind of. She's the first African American woman to actually be the commander and of the space flight, but she's not a part of NASA, but she's part of her story as well. So those 6 are the African-American women who've flown in space. Now, the first woman astronaut is an African-American woman. That is not a European. It's African-American woman. And she's like an astrophysicist, if you will, astrophysiology. So she's the one who prepared all the astronauts to go in space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I used to teach about her in my class as well. So it's been a fascinating life. So talking about that 2006. So then in 2011, I got called again, and we had the opportunity, which is a luxury and a rare event. We got an opportunity to be Dr. Macy Jemison, Dr. Joy Robinson Nelson, who is the director of the Dorothy Jemison Foundation for Excellence, which is her foundation that she created. So she has 2 other businesses. All of these are housed in the building in her office in Houston. And she travels all over the world, all the time, speaks and does all kinds of things. Anyway, the Jemison Foundation is there, and the 3 of us, really there were 5 of us, 2 other individuals who Raj Mandavelli became co-investigators on a NASA grant, $1.27 million. And in my lifetime, I could have never told you I would get to be a co-investigator with a former NASA astronaut, African American woman who, everybody knows who she is. I mean, just everybody, no matter what you look like, cats and dogs know who she is. And so, to be a co-investigator. And so for 5 years, the grant provided for summer camp, but I had to go live in LA for 3 months. So I had to leave my home and go live in LA. And most often, if I didn't say this, when I had to go to these camps, I had to be away from home 3 to 4 or 5 weeks away from my home to be there living and making sure everything happened and working with it, training the educators. And I trained, and I guess I didn't say that part either, but I trained the educators side by side with Dr. Macy Jemison. And so we have photos where we're training the new teachers that are coming along to be ready for the camp. So they would come in 3 or 4 days early, train them in the curriculum that's hers. And then I would monitor. That would be my job, to monitor what they do and get them ready for their presentations. And I fly out. Dr. J would come back in I never call her by first name. I don't do that. I call her Dr. J. I always have. She's earned it. I mean, she's one of the greatest minds in the last 4 or 5, 6 centuries. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, just to be in her presence is just amazing. In any case, so we got an opportunity to be the co-investigators to run. So I ran that camp that first summer. 600. We didn't get what's called drawdown, so we didn't get the money from the grant, and I had a $375,000 budget, which really wasn't too bad for 6 weeks. So I really unofficially became the camp director. Really wasn't the plan, but it worked out like that. So I started out with just me when I got sent to LA. Just me. And then I found out I had 10 interns I could work with. So one of the interns I dubbed as the lead, and the other 9 we trained to do various and sundry things. And then I had to develop a team of 5 educators who became our curriculum team. And then we had 80 teachers, 50 unique, that we had to train over the course of that 6 weeks. And then we had 600 some odd students. Once the money came, we were able to make everything happen. But every week, at the end of the week, we would go to Compton. And at Compton, there is an airport. And there we had the opportunity to use a hangar. And it was this amazing $1 million helicopter hung out in this hangar. Anyway, we would do the kids we would prepare the kids all week long to do their presentation at the end of every week. So that was pretty amazing. It was just an amazing experience. And so each summer after, they continued with that grant in LA with LAUS, should say LAUSD was our partner. So we worked in Compton. We worked at Fauché Learning Center, which is down the street from the West Angeles Church of God in Christ. And then we had another one in Gardenia. And so it was an amazing event. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, and I saw it on your profile.
That summer in the Science and Industry Museum, Dr. J was. So
nice.
Yeah. So that's
part of the show.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, finish what you was about to say.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You can finish what you was about to say.
Oh no, I was just saying it was just an amazing. I'm still thinking back how amazing that was. So.
Okay, this part of the show. I asked so many questions already to promote what you got going on.
Well, so this year I'm finally wanting to put all these stories that I've told you today, and I've been interviewed on a few podcasts last year. All of a sudden, they want to hear what the elder has to say. Thank God, because I want to pass these stories on. I know I want to pass the stories on. I have nieces, and I have as my niece says, grand nieces and nephews. I just had a grand nephew born and a grand niece born on the first and the third. I'm 60 years old, right? But I'm gonna get to know them. My job is to teach them how to run and how to stretch. So when they get a little older, I'll teach them how to run and stretch. That's my job as the grand aunt. And so that's a part of the story. But a greater part of the story is finally getting the books out that I've been wanting to write. So the first one is a 3-volume series that I've written the first volume. I've got 2 more to write. And they're really probably, I guess you'd say, in 20-year increments since I'm 60. I just turned 62 last month. And I know I don't look it, thank God. And that's okay. I work at that. Health and wellness. If you're growing plants, you ought to look well, since that's what you're growing, right? In any case, and I chose the name of the first volume back when I was working for what's called Xerox, and that's a whole nother corporate story all by itself. But I started out with "Can I Cry Now?" And then the next volume will be Can I Laugh Now? And then this last one will be Can I Sing Now? There's another book that was authored by one of my doctor sisters from the honorary doctorate program, Dr. Allison. And Sabrina T. Allison, she wrote the book. It's a children's book called AJ and the Big Sunshine. So that needs to get published with illustrations this year. Those 3 volumes,
Okay.
and then the last one is called The Courage to, and I had to really change the title a little bit because it's kind of popular. The Courage to Teach with Dr. Nealy. And so it will be an anthology of, and that's a whole nother show's conversation with my students who are all grown up. And I committed to them when they were 15 and now they're 45, that I wanted to see them go to the highest level. And I wanted to see them get their doctorates and get their own schools and have their own businesses. And they've done that. And so at least 10 of my students or more have earned their doctorates. And so now I call them doctor, and they welcome me into the doctor club, actually. And many of them have schools or own businesses. And so I want them to write their story and just talk about how our paths crossed. And I think it would be an interesting read. It's, it's based on an educator here out of Indianapolis, African-American woman, and just telling that story. And I think it'd be a compelling story. I think it'd be an interesting story. And I think it would be an encouraging story. So I really want to be sure all that gets done, before God says it's time to come home. So I want to leave those stories here in the hands of the young folk like yourself.
Well, I was sitting there like, I think she's a fellow author, but I'm not sure.
Yes, I am. Yes. And actually, my first book I wrote when I was 19, when I worked for PECO. What's called PECO now was Philadelphia Electric back then, but it was SO2 particulate removal and what all the problems were when you burn coal in a station, and then it comes up and it goes to the stack and it causes acid rain. So anyway, I had to write that book. So it was my first book, actually.
Okay. So I'm gonna try an author when I put it out latest episode.
Absolutely, author. And I do have an audiobook put out 2 years ago, and it's just it's an anthology, and I'm part of 12 other authors. I was the 13th added, and mine is just a health story. And I actually recorded it and put it on my YouTube page, and they had to go back and interpret it and put it in words and put it in the book. But it's good. It's good, yeah. So yeah, I'm an author too, absolutely.
So you got your plant company making everything look awesome outside, inside, books. Anything else coming up?
I really want to focus on those, and as I said before, I've been asked to be interviewed on podcasts. I really look forward to that, to really tell the story that I didn't get the opportunity to tell as an educator. I was so busy teaching kids, I didn't get a chance to really tell the stories of all those stories that have happened. I've been a pro athlete, and that's a whole other conversation by itself as well. And we started. Yeah, I played pro football. I got drafted when I was 41. And I ran still back then. I was able to run a 4.4 second 40 meter. I'm sure you know. In today's football, that's combine time. Yeah, I would have got drafted. I did get drafted. Actually, there was a historic draft. I went 20th in the second round, and then when I was 35, going on 36, I got an opportunity to try out for the Olympic trials as a pole vaulter. So I started pole vaulting at 34, 33, 34. So yeah,
that's a book.
Yeah, it is. Just the whole lifestyle, the whole health and wellness lifestyle, and just all the things that went with that. So it's been an amazing, blessed life. I was adopted, and that's a whole story all by itself as well. But it's been a blessed life. But as I said when I opened up, I said I take advantage of opportunities, and I also make sure that whatever gift or whatever talent has come, that I try to develop it and make it bigger and better, and not take it for granted, and really remain humble but stay hungry. I guess even at 62, I'm still like, I don't want to be complacent. I would still want to stay relevant and in the moment, and look to the future. So I'm looking to make sure that my nieces, I didn't have children, man, I have nieces and nephews and my students, and I told them, and I still tell them, and I told these kids when they were 15, it was 30 some years ago, I said, I need you to do what my father told me. I want to live long enough to see you make more money than me, and to, just do better than me. So.
Okay. What has been your biggest challenge on your journey?
Biggest challenge, time to do all those things, running a company. And then, I work at night at FedEx and do some, help make them billions. number cruncher and advisement. So finding the time, to get all that done, and I've always been like that. I was like that as a kid, and it has not changed. So finding the time to get it done. I always like to finish what I started, and maybe later. Like I build model cars. I may have started building a model car 20 years ago. I'm gonna go back to it and finish it. That kind of thing. So
Okay. What has been your impact on your journey?
say it again.
What has been your impact on your journey?
My impact on my journey, as in impact, like what's impacted me or impacted other people.
Yeah, how you impacted people.
I would tell you the greatest impact would be the success of my students and of my nieces and nephews. That they actually listened to me when they were 15 and actually went to college and finished and got rid of their debt and bought their own car and bought their own home and started their own companies. That they actually did, and I got to live to see it. To see their success is absolutely amazing. So that would be.
And last question, what advice do you have for someone trying to find their purpose?
I heard the lady that you interviewed, well, she has a doctorate now in chemistry, and she said find what you like, and I say find what you love, and the money will come. Do what you love, and just do it well. Do it all the time. Do it well, until it becomes a profession that you can live off of and you can teach others. And then you never work a day in your life. You just love what you do. And I mean, I love what I do, all the different components of my life. I love what I do, and I choose to do what I love. And I tell people all the time, I don't. I know folk get depressed. I understand that, and I know people get divorced. But please return to the things you love, and put your life back on track. So.
And shout out to Dr. Tierra Heaton.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I love that interview you did with her, and everything she was talking about. She was talking with no notes, so she hadn't want to note that or reference to have the conversation with you. She was rattling off the inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, the physical chemistry. I was like, oh my god, and it just revived back what I was thinking when I was a chemistry major. I was like, oh god. Because there are not in my class, there were 135 that graduated. 5 of us were chemistry majors, and of those 5, 2 of us, 1, 2, 3 of us were women. So
yeah, I wasn't about that life.
Yeah, it's a whole other world.
Superheroes,
You gotta love being in the lab.
Like what? Oh god.
You gotta love being in the lab.
I ain't trying to blow it up, man. I ain't trying to blow it up. But you say put together? No, this ain't me, man. I ain't got the patience right now for all this.
Yeah, it takes, and 3 trials. It didn't work the first time. You got to do a second time. It may take however long it takes. Didn't work the second time. Got to do a third time, and then you assess all 3 and go, okay. And then you may have to do the whole thing over again.
But it was the funnest labs at Wayne State, because when they say, okay, y'all get in the groups, what they say, dude? I'm like, look here, man. I'm just trying to figure out what the hell that was. And we just get a good laugh, like, well, we're gonna ask another question. He's gonna come around, and she's gonna come around like, hey, explain that one more time. I ain't trying to blow nothing up. They ain't gonna say I did it. Those are great laughs. We're like, I know I heard it, but I ain't comprehending that, man. Hey, talk to me like I'm 2. Come on, let's do it one more time, so I can figure it out. Shout out to all y'all chemist people, science people, man. We need y'all.
Hey, I think God gave us that gift. I really do. I don't think, there's very few of us in the world. And when you talk about percentage of the 400 million plus in America that do chemistry, there's not, an abundance of us. So when things go wrong, I think that the world's come to us to try to solve and find, what's the solution? What's the possible solution? What's the possible way to get there? So, because that's just something we do all the time. That's how we approach life. So to us, it's normal. It's we might be sleeping, telling you how to do A, B, C, and D.
That's true. And we need y'all. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Give me flowers to you, because hey, this asteroid coming. What we got to do?
Get out of the way.
Every movie they make like that, they call it all the smart science people. Like, hey, come out your house, get on this plane. We gotta go somewhere. Like, hey, I don't care. Get up, get off the bed. You gotta go. Like, dang, they just ain't out.
Absolutely.
So shout out to the science people.
Absolutely.
I hope you had fun sharing your amazing basketball.
Oh, I did, Mr. Edwards. I did. Thank you so much. I'm still humbled and grateful for the opportunity to, to have the conversation with you, to share with your audience, to impart new things that maybe they have not heard, or a repeat or an encouragement to do
I
what they
learned a
love.
lot.
Yeah,
You had like
absolutely.
10 lives already. Are you a Marvel character? Something like NASA?
If they told me,
Man, hold on.
if they told me I could fly around like in Wakanda forever, I would not say no to that. I'd say yes. Oh my
That'd be
gosh.
awesome. And the checks be awesome too.
Yep.
But we definitely want to thank President Owner of the Plant Whisperers Inc., Ambassador at Large, and author Dr. Angela J., Dr. Coach AJ Nealy, Ph.D., for sharing their story. And we all learned a little bit more about that plant life.
Yes. Thank you. Blessings.
Appreciate you. We're going to
Appreciate
go
you.
with this awesome outro. Hope everybody have a nice weekend. Got another great guest tomorrow. Everybody have a good one.
Detroit raised me. Detroit's in me. Can't nothing stop me.